This is 1059 The Region, where parents talk and explore practical, proactive, and evidence-based solutions. This is Where Parents Talk with Lianne Castelino.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Where Parents Talk on 1059 The Region. I'm your host, Lianne Castelino. Today's show features a bit of a change of pace. Instead of a hot topic in parenting, we've got something a little different lined up for you. What it's like to weave personal with professional and being a parent. That's precisely what our guest today is taking on. He is an award-winning stand-up comedian who spent more than 2 decades headlining venues across North America and around the world. Steve Patterson is also the host of The Debaters on CBC Radio, an author and a father of 2 young girls. His second book and latest comedy album focuses on parenting. Steve joins us today from Toronto. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lianne.
Certainly being a parent can provide endless content for those of us who aren't comedians by profession. What made you decide to make that the focus of your latest comedy album, which is called Patterdad Volume 1?
Well, a lot of my comedy before this has been, ironically, was more about my dad, and it was still family stuff, but it was me, on my own and stuff about my older Irish dad. And then I realized now I am the older dad. So before my kids start making jokes about me, I better make jokes about them myself. And that was kids are an endless source of material, and they're already pretty much funnier than me in a lot of respects. So I thought I better get one more kick at the can out before they put their own albums out as retorts,
Because that's going to happen sooner rather than later, right? No doubt.
I think so. They can work technology better than me. They'll just record an album while playing in their room. I won't even know about it.
So significance of the name Patterdad. Obviously, Patterson's your last name, but is there any other hidden meaning there?
No, I wish I could say it was deeper than that, but I'm not. A lot of my material has been about being a son. This is about being a dad. So it just seemed like a very quick transition from Patterson to Patterdad, but I'll be Patterdad for, a long time now. So it's, I'm just trying to get ahead of it,
Now, you became a father later in life. I wonder what elements of your journey to becoming a dad have provided the most fodder for you in your stand-up routine.
Well, I think it's just all encompassing, anyone that has kids knows when your kids are young, you're learning on the go, you're learning on the job, and you're spending as much time as you possibly can with them. I have to travel quite a bit, but when I'm home now, I'm not going out and about town. I'm hanging out with my girls and I'm, finding entertainment in that. So, where I used to make jokes about what's going on in the world and what's going on in these different places I go, I prefer to kind of find the comedy at home now. And I think a lot of people do relate to that. Obviously, being a parent it's like the most adorable kind of house arrest, isn't it?
That is a very interesting way of looking at it, for sure. So how different is it then? You say, talking about being with your dad in that relationship, and that comprised a lot of your material, going from that to now being the dad and the parent and talking about your family through that lens.
Yeah, it was a twofold kind of transition for me, because I went from lots of material about being the youngest of 5 Irish boys to now being the dad of 2 girls. It was a twofold thing, as far as not only am I suddenly a dad, I'm a dad to girls. And we didn't have girls in the house growing up. I was the youngest of 5 boys. So it's a completely different dynamic now. And yet, there are some things that are the same between girls and boys, but there's some things that are just inherently, distinctly different. And I'm enjoying learning about it as I go. It doesn't matter what it says in any book. Every adult man has to learn to be a dad to a young girl. There's just differences when you grew up with all boys.
So take us through that journey, Steve, in terms of what kind of preparation or, what kind of mentors, let's say, did you have to help support you to raising your first daughter and now 2?
My dad my dad remarried when I was about 9, which is my oldest daughter's age now, and my stepmom had all daughters, so I inherited a whole family of sisters when I was about Scarlett's age now. So I've gotten a little bit of insight into that. They're a very supportive, kind family, and I just saw the way that whole thing kind of softened my dad from being around maniac boys all the time. And not that all boys are maniacs, but I can say that my family was not the mainstream. So he definitely softened around the edges when he not only remarried, but then inherited stepdaughters to go along with it. So that helped me along.
So you also have the benefit of being part of a blended family as well for further content.
Well, I'm going to try to, this one's all I can handle right now. There's no blending. Thanks. This is good. Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey to becoming a dad. Now, you and your wife had a little bit of difficulty conceiving. It's obviously not an easy topic generally. So how do you go about turning something like that into something entertaining?
Yeah, I give my wife, Nancy, credit for even including that in the book, because it wasn't something I was going to talk about. It's pretty difficult to find any humor in that at all. But once I started talking to some people about it, I realized that a lot of my friends went through it as well. It's just not something people generally talk about. And I thought, if I could talk about this honestly and maybe find a couple laughs in it, I should include it, because more people than you think have gone through that. And that, I have to say, is the number one feedback I get about the book, was people thanking me for talking about that and including it, and realizing there is, you might as well try to find the light side and something like that. It's not light to go through it. But it's something people do go through, and they kind of go through it and don't tell anyone because it's whatever it is. But there's certainly a couple of lighter moments in it. And, that's where I try to support other families that are going through it, because it's so much more common than you think.
This is Where Parents Talk. I'm Lianne Castelino with award-winning comedian Steve Patterson, whose latest comedy album focuses on parenting. Speaking of that topic and some of the lighter moments that you found in it, could you share some of those with us?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a whole section in the book. I don't know if I got too much stand up out of it in the album, but we were going to a fertility clinic, and it ended up that we would get an automated call, like from I think I dubbed the voice RoboPimp, which is not the technical name of it, but they would tell us when it was time for maximized efficiency of conception or something, some term like that, real romantic. And one of those calls came in when my new brother-in-law was visiting town unexpectedly. So we had to tell him, yeah, Steve can't go see you just yet, because we've got to try to conceive a child right now. And then I had to go meet my new brother-in-law, him having just known that I've just tried to conceive a child with my wife / his sister. So I don't know that I'll ever be in a more awkward situation, and he'll probably never be, but at least I talk about it. I'm sure he doesn't want to bring it up, but I found a way to talk about that in the book. And, that kind of led to, once we kind of let ourselves relax, and we went to the Grey Cup, and I had to perform some shows in the Grey Cup, and that ends up being where our first child was conceived, not in the party, but that weekend. So it's funny, because people say, you just put too much pressure on yourself, and it really does have an effect. But yeah, Brent Butt wrote a whole section of the book because I partied for a weekend with Brent Butt, and then suddenly I was able to have a baby. So I'm not saying Brent Butt's the baby whisperer, but I'm not saying he's not.
Thanks for the clarification, by the way, about the Grey Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want people to start calling him like, can you help us?
So on that note, Steve, do you run any of your potential content by your wife, by your young girls, before you actually use it?
It's a good question, and I may have to start with my youngest daughter because she really has a lot of questions about everything, and um, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna have to sign something before I have conversations with her in the future. She really she wants to know why we're talking about what we're talking about. But my wife trusts me. She knows that this is what I do, and she knows that I will be respectful, I think, about anything that I share. And my daughter Scarlett she's well on her way to writing her own comedy anyway. She's opened up a couple shows for me, just saying it's 5 minutes till showtime, and I have not asked her to, but she's written some material into those show openings for people. So she can't wait to share things with people. And yeah, I think they're okay with it. It's only Nora that'll be like, Dad, you're embarrassing me, and maybe make me sign some sort of cease and desist order. She's 4, so I feel like I have a couple years left, but
Maybe a couple of years, Steve.
maybe. Yeah. No, she's quite smart.
Steve, are you ever concerned that parenting content may not fully resonate with your entire audience at any given time?
That's a good question, and you always hear that. I think, comics, when you're younger comics, you're like, well, I don't want to talk about what old people talk about, what older people talk about. But I think it's just the stage that where you are in life. And my theory on talking about family things, everyone has family connections. And even if it's, even if you don't have a real close relationship with your parents, or you're not a young child that's still living at home, you still have memories, at least some, of family life. So, I think everyone comes from a family in one form or another, and it's going to be a way to unite through comedy. And it's weird because reading all the books about going to have when we were trying to get pregnant, and then when we were pregnant, a lot of those books are very, medicinal kind of advice and textbook things. That's not real life. So I think it's good to have some real life things out there. And one of the other parts of the book that people seem to talk about a lot is when my wife had to, I don't know another way to say this, so suck the snot out of our baby's nose. I didn't know that was a thing that humans did, and walked in on my wife doing that to our daughter, to Nora, actually, while I was trying to sleep with Scarlett. So that's something that all parents know about. You don't think you'll ever talk about it. So it's funny if you start talking. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you're bringing back memories. And yes, your description is exactly that. There's no other way of describing it.
That's right. I'm trying to be more literary here, but there's really not. Sometimes you just got to suck the snot out through a tube,
Well, and the contraption, right? That's a whole piece for you to explore in your routine, Steve. The actual contraption that you use to do the deed.
Yeah, I'm still traumatic. It's still like I walked in on a unicorn being hunted down or something. I got to get it out of my brain, I guess.
Now, you talked about your book, which came out in 2021, and it's called Dad Up, Longtime Comedian, First Time Father. How much did the book, if at all, help you with the comedy routine Patter Dad Volume 1?
Well, it really made me understand that I could do a whole set or a whole show based on being a dad. I mean, also you don't hear too many things about the advantage of living home through a pandemic for a couple of years, but that gave me the time to write a book, to really be there day in and day out and see what was going on. And there was just so much material in the book that I could draw from for stand-up. I mean, I really could have just read the book. One of the tracks on the album is literally just me reading the foreword to the book. So, it does become I did actually do an audiobook version, and it was the easiest audiobook I've ever had to read because it's just experiences. I didn't really try to, you don't have to make it any more literary than it is. It's family life. So I think everyone can relate to that. And yeah, I really don't back down from it. My kids kind of try to outsmart me all the time. They succeed a lot, and I'm fine with that. And I've noticed, now that I've gone through being a young boy, I've noticed how different the young boys are to the young girls, and I'm not saying any is better or worse, but man, it's pretty easy to spot the difference right away.
Mm-hmm. That's a separate book and a separate album. I can feel it coming
Probably
now.
is, but I don't know if the world's ready for boys will be boys, that kind of stuff. There's lots of common traits.
More ahead with our guest, award-winning comedian, author, and father of two, Steve Patterson, when Where Parents Talk returns. Stay with us.
Want to learn more about the show? Email info@whereparentstalk.com. Stick around. Lianne Castelino and Where Parents Talk will be right back on 1059 The Region. Welcome back to Where Parents Talk. Listen live at 1059theregion.com. Here's Lianne Castelino.
Welcome back. I'm Lianne Castelino here with you on 1059 The Region. Parenting can often be no laughing matter, but our guest today begs to differ. Stand-up comedian Steve Patterson has made parenting the focus of his latest comedy album as a dad of two girls aged 9 and 4. Steve, what would you say has surprised you the most about being a father?
The hours. I think it's pretty relentless. I didn't realize it would be a day job and a night job and an afternoon job. And I shouldn't say that. Of course, I realized it. And I travel a lot. So it's really on my wife more so than I am. But, I do really feel for my wife when there's times when my girls just don't want, they spend more time with her. So I'll be trying to put my daughter to bed and she'll be like, no, I want mommy. I'm like, but I'm here right now. I'm ready. She's like, no, I want mommy. And she's got to, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm trying I put in all the time that I can, but sometimes daddy's just not good enough. So that's been a tough part about it. And it's just a relentless job, but there's lots of great moments in it. And you kind of find the joy within those moments rather than kind of looking outside it, I think.
So how do you go about managing that? You talk about traveling a lot, being away from home for chunks of time. Is there such a thing as dad guilt in your world?
100%. I felt it. Especially because the world was still going when Scarlett was born. So she was a month old and I had to go on the road for a month. And my mother-in-law came to be with Nancy, and I felt every minute that I shouldn't be on the road. But unfortunately, we've yet to master building a comedy club in the house. If I could, I would just walk out back, do the show, and then walk through a door and be home already. So it still is very tough to be away, and they're in their young years where they're only going to go through things one time, and I don't want to be away for that. So I'm making a conscious effort to, if I'm going away, it's got to be maximized efficiency. I've turned down a lot of things that are going to keep me on the road too long. I don't want to be away too long. So it's definitely changed things, and I think for the better.
Now, on managing guilt, are you the type to overcompensate, or do you have rituals that you lean on in order to sort of make up for that lost time?
Well, particularly when you have, let's just hypothetically say, a month-long comedy tour right before Christmas, you tend to come back with a sack full of stuff bigger than Santa's. And that's certainly the case for me this year. I was just on the road for a couple of weeks and definitely picked up something for the girls everywhere that I went. And, my wife's only, I won't say request, it's a demand now, is to stop bringing home stuffed animals because they have certainly overtaken the house. But I always try to find a little something wherever I am to come back. And the girls know I am. So before I've stepped in the door, they want to know what I've gotten for them. So they've got that to look forward to. I'd love to say that my girls are not in any way materialistic, but they always want to know what did I bring home for them when I come home.
Steve, in what ways would you say that being a parent, becoming a dad, has fundamentally changed you?
I think in almost every conceivable way, to be totally honest, Lianne. Just the stand-up comedy life is, one of the most, I don't want to say, it's individualistic. You get to see your friends in different places on the road, and it's great when you have, friends from school that you can go visit, and your schedule is yours, and that's a fun part of things. But it's really an individual existence, and to have the family life to come back to now, you certainly don't feel like you're missing anything when you're away and there's not a family to come back to. And now every day that I'm away, I feel like I've missed something. So it changes things that way. And we're fortunate that in the summer, I have a show that I do in Woody Point, Newfoundland every year that the family comes out with. And I'm trying to do more and more of those things now where I can bring the family with me on the road and experience some of those things. And the girls like the travel, obviously. So it's changed fundamentally everything for me.
So was family life and becoming a dad something you always wanted?
You sort of don't know until you find the right person, right? If I didn't have Nancy, who's probably the world's best mom, I know it's a tie between many, many moms, but she's in there. You find that person that's so strong on their own that you feel okay. Oh, I could be away a little bit because they're gonna be okay. They're in good hands. So I never thought about it really until I met Nance, and the fact that I had to go away for a month when our daughter was only 1 month old and the first go around was a pretty good indication of how things were going to be. And they're okay, but I just miss being at home whenever I'm away. And honestly, and it's weird, but one of the great things about doing material about them is I'm giving them a bit of a shout out every night. I'm saying, this is what my daughter Scarlett does. This is what my daughter Nora does. I mention them by name, and then they're part of the show, even though they're not there. So, and I don't know that that'll ever stop for me now. And some comics or some people are like, "Oh, you're only going to talk about your family." Well, maybe, I don't know. That's become the world. So try to make them characters in your show.
So for people who may not be familiar with your brand of comedy, how would you go about describing that?
That's a good question. I don't really know what the brand would be. I mean, a lot of people know me from hosting the debaters, so they'll my stand-up's definitely different than that because I don't get to do a lot of stand-up while hosting the show. I do like to talk about what's going on in the world, but I'm generally talking about it from the context of being a dad of daughters now, as opposed to just a person observing the news. So I've always been a pretty clean comic. So I think, when people say above the belt comedy, some people think, oh, that's, what is it, children's comedy? Not really. It's just, I think anyone can try to be funny by a tirade of swear words. Kids think it's just the swear words themselves are funny. So I'd sort of think of comedians that swear a lot as sort of being stuck in a bit of a juvenile phase. So I've tried to come beyond that and just do stuff that everyone can laugh at. If I'm making fun of someone in the room, I want them to be laughing the loudest, and a lot of that has to do with my daughters too. I don't want them making fun of people unless the people can laugh along with them. That said, my daughter Scarlett, if she's inherited anything genetically from me, it's the ability to come back to a comment, which will probably get her in some trouble throughout her life. But it's there's nothing wrong with a quick wit, I think. So she's got that going for her.
Steve, what would you say are some of the funnier things that you've discovered about being a seasoned dad, an older dad?
Did you phrase the seasoned dad? Did you copyright that? I like that. Yeah. Sounds like a barbecue book, really. But look, I'm in a different phase of life now, and it's actually inspired me to want to take better care of myself because I want to be in as good a shape physically to do things with my girls growing up as I can. And I had them late in life. So, I've definitely cleaned up my act just in terms of routines and habits and diet. I'm still not the healthiest person in the world, but I realize that stuff that's going on after 10 o'clock at night now, I'm okay to miss out on it. I don't even know when the last time I watched a hockey game till the end was, to be honest with you. I'm like, you boys have fun. I'm going to sleep. The outcome of this game is not as important to me as feeling good tomorrow when the girls wake up. So
it's amazing how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah. And it feels good. It feels good to kind of go to bed and get up early, go right on the Peloton, and just ride like I'm going somewhere.
Steve, many parents struggle today for sure to find humor in being a parent. There's all kinds of unique challenges that we're aware of depending on where we are with our ages and stages as parents. What would you suggest to somebody, a parent, a caregiver, as somebody who's in the business of making people laugh, to keep things light, even in tough times as a parent?
I think you got to look for the little laughs throughout the day and or night and take advantage of every opportunity to make each other laugh, because it's so easy to get bogged down with the little things that add up to big things. And, you're going to be spending the majority of your time with each other. So if you can make each other laugh, I think that's the best thing there could be. And our daughter, our youngest, who's 4, like lots of toddlers, she's going through a phase where the word poop just makes her laugh. And, we'll talk her out of that eventually, but it really brings her so much joy right now. And any joke she tells has the word poop in the punchline, if it's not the punchline just itself. And I know lots of parents want to talk their kids out of any sort of toilet talk, but it really brings her joy. It makes her laugh. And, we try to refine it and work up from there. And she's working on it. She's building her material, and Scarlett's material is getting better and better. So I think that the girls love making us laugh. And I think that that's a great skill to have. And, I don't laugh at everything they say. I don't want to make it too easy for them, but they're pretty good. And I would just say, it only takes about 3 seconds before you can laugh at almost any situation in parenting that has to do with a mess that was made. You just got to give yourself that beat and, just appreciate that sometimes things are going to be quote unquote demolished in your house, but, then it's an obstacle course. It's good for your agility. So just jump over those things.
So how far away are we from Patter Dad Volume 2?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, the material presents itself every day. It's really just a matter of honing it a bit and recording it. But I don't think too long. This could be something that's out next year already. It depends which phase of life I want to get them at. It'll be, I would say, in the next year or two, we'll have the follow up to Patter Dad, and maybe the girls will have some guest tracks on the album. I would say at least Scarlett will by then for sure. So
it certainly is an endless amount of content. Steve Patterson, stand-up comedian, whose latest comedy album is called Patter Dad Volume 1. We appreciate you making time for us today.
Thank you for having me.
Be sure to watch the full video interview with Steve Patterson, as well as all of our guests at whereparentstalk.com. That is our show. Thank you for listening. Hope you'll join us next time.
Sign up for Lianne's parenting newsletter and so much more at whereparentstalk.com. This is Where Parents Talk on 105.9 The Region.